Hello and welcome back to my kitchen. Today I have created something beautiful. Using acorn flour that came from the oak tree in my backyard, I put together some acorn drop biscuits. So these are a very simple and easy recipe that I picked up by a woman named Alicia Bayer. I will link to her blog and her Instagram and her recipes below so that you can also benefit from her amazing explorations in acorn flour cooking, baking, different things. But yeah, I wanted to pick something easy because this was my first time baking with acorn flour. So this is what I came up with, and they turned out delicious. These are vegan, they are gluten-free, so they will help you or your friends with dietary needs out and make them very happy. And they are hearty and delicious. And the great thing about acorn flour is it's also very, very nutritious and healthy for you. And if you missed my little video on how to make acorn flour and how to do the actual processing of the acorns, I will link that below as well. So without further ado, let's make you up a batch of acorn biscuits. I've got all of my ingredients laid out. I'm actually gonna take just a tablespoon of apple cider vinegar and I'm going to throw it into a measuring cup. And I'm going to be adding just under 1 cup of a non-dairy milk. So I'm using almond milk here. And I'm just going to fill it up to the 1 cup line. Alright, I'm going to stir that up. And now I'm just going to set this aside while I deal with my dry ingredients. It's about 1/3 acorn flour to 2/3 flour. So I'm using a 1/2 cup of acorn flour. So beautiful. Just gonna throw that in there. And a cup of flour. So we are using gluten-free all-purpose flour. If you want, you can make this with regular wheat flour, and if you do not have to include the xanthan gum. This is going in specifically because it helps as a binder, because gluten-free flour tends to not bind as well. Also notice I've chosen a recipe that has not as much acorn flour and more regular flour. Acorn flour is, from what I've heard, can be a little tricky to learn to bake with, so I've chosen something that's easier and has kind of a blend to help me get started here. Gonna add a 1/4 teaspoon of salt. I'm gonna throw in a teaspoon of baking powder. And my oven is going off. I just preheated that to 425. So that's gonna be ready to go. And we're gonna add 1/2 teaspoon of baking soda. What even is baking soda? Tell me in the comments below. It's just magical sprinkle sauce that makes things puff up. All right. So now I'm gonna mix all this together. And you'll see that it's kind of a darker color because you're getting that rich color of the acorn flour. So pretty. Okay, now I'm going to cut in a 1/4 cup of shortening. So I've got vegetable shortening here that I'm going to use. If I can get it out of my cup. So if you have a pastry cutter, you can use that, but I just have a fork. So basically, you're going to cut up the shortening into the flour until it's evenly dispersed. All right. It's crumbly, but there's no big chunks. That's when I know I'm ready to add my milk mixture. Gonna give that just another quick whip. Blend it in. I was mixing it with a fork, and now I have a spoon in my hand. It must be the magic of baking powder. Now, we're just gonna drop these by the spoonful onto our cookie sheet. Doesn't have to be greased. Should be able to just go right on there. You don't really know if I'm making them the right size, but we're gonna find out. There's no wrong size for a biscuit. I feel like I should have practiced this skill before being on camera. That's okay, we're learning together. I feel like some of these are bigger than others. Let's just fix that. You know what? They're not perfect, but if they fail, at least I can blame you because we're a team. And sometimes you want a big biscuit, sometimes you want a small biscuit. So we're gonna pop these in the oven at 425 for 12 to 15 minutes or until they're just slightly brown. All right, I'm gonna pull these puppies out. I found it a little bit hard to tell when they're finished just because the dough itself is so dark. So I ended up putting them back in for closer to like 17 minutes, I would say. But I'm pretty confident that these are good to go. So let's try them. Okay. Gonna slice into this bad boy. I'm gonna have mine with a little bit of non-dairy butter. I'm excited. The color of these is just beautiful. It's like this deep, rich, dark brown. And Acorn flour is just extremely healthy for you. It's super nutritious and very filling. So this should be a super hearty start to my day. Definitely perfectly cooked. I'm glad I put them back in for a few minutes. It's got kind of like a nutty, you can kind of taste the acorn nuttiness coming through, and it's just very, very slightly bitter. Oh yeah, really good. I also am curious. I'll try this with some honey. Honey, baby. You know, I don't actually think it needs the honey, but it's tasty that way too. So I would say this is a huge success. One thing I learned was I needed to leave them in a little bit longer than I thought. I don't know if it's just because the dough is a bit darker colored because of the acorns, but it made it a little bit harder to tell when they were totally cooked through. But I feel like these came out perfectly, just the way they should be. They have a nutty flavor, they're really rich. You can tell that you're putting something super healthy into your body, but they're also at the same time delicious. So I'll definitely be making these again. And I'm sure I will be putting out offerings to the squirrels that I share this oak tree with, because we have some pretty fierce competition. So I have to let them know that I'm thinking of them when I take those acorns. Gotta leave a little bit behind. And so far they have enjoyed all of those offerings as well. Hope you enjoyed this offering, and looking forward to seeing you next time in my kitchen. Bye.